Now, as many of you guys are aware, I'm a huge fan of that chapter. And just like every content creator, everybody kind of goes through that stage where you see them progress from being a little more soft spoken, not too witty, uh, try not to cross any barriers. And that was certainly Mike at the get go. You know, a lot of people were saying, like, yeah, I mean, he was just throwing it up against the wall, seeing what sticks. Once he caught his niche, look at where he's at. Like I said, those numbers still need to be high. And every video I review, I will always say, give him the props, give him the credit. I am just reacting to a wonderful story that he puts out, and not wonderful and what he, reports on or, researches on, but just the quality in which he does it. Again, witty sense of humor, very likable, easy to, very easy stories to follow, especially with him. He doesn't dumb them down, but what he does is he tells the story just seamless. And I would love to see him pass like 4 or 5 million subscribers. So I'm always championing that for him. In no way, shape, or form, because I've had haters say like, oh, you're just taking his stuff and this and that. No, I'm not taking his stuff. I'm reacting to his stuff. There's a lot of reaction channels out there. The same way we react to movies or react to music, it's the same thing I'm doing reacting, to him, except I'm not trying to sit here and give it a grade, like, oh yeah, that was only an A, or B on that one. It was sorry. No, I mean, every one except for his beginning videos to me have been A plus all the way. And I'm sure he doesn't care, my opinion, but, to a lot of other people, and the more people that I could get, to definitely put him up there with the higher YouTubers would be awesome. And I mean, it already looks like, he's developed a great amount of friendships with, content creators. If you watched that April Fool's joke that turned into a big old mess with him and some of the content creators here in America, it's effing hilarious. I suggest you go and watch it. It's the bad side of that chapter. It's in my channel here. But yeah, let's get ready for another one I haven't seen yet. Ever since he decided to just start posting one a week, which I don't blame the guy. I mean, he puts a lot of work into them. And, like I said, I hope he posts them on Friday. But whatever his posting is, I'm there. I am there. This one is The Sinister Case of Sasha Krause. So let's see how this one plays out.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, what we are going to do is examine a disappearance in New Mexico and one fella's long-held, kind of bizarre, I wouldn't say little grudge, big grudge, big grudge. His tiny face getting red with anger. That was at something which haunted him since he was a baby boy. In 2020, two people crashed into each other.
So one thing I do want to mention, sorry to pause so early, but he does a great job editing. If you really pay attention, on the last review that I did, when one of the detectives or something did something stupid, he added the Simpsons character, I don't know their names anymore, but the bully with the ha ha, and just he's effing just brilliant. I mean, the dude could easily be a director. I could see it. And being in the acting business, he would be a hell of a good director. Just those little things actually matter. So that's just my opinion.
One rejecting what they had been taught as a young'un, and the other embraced it. This would take them 300 miles away to a remote part of Flagstaff, Arizona. And you can guess which side kind of won out at the end, leaving a mess for the others to find. But of course, that's not the real end. We got the body cams, we got the interviews, we got the whole, kit and caboodle, so let's give it a go. Gull. The city of Farmington, New Mexico, lies right at the tippity left from the aliens' point of view of that state. It is surrounded by Navajo land and has some very stunning scenery. Look, rocks. Gasp. A little less than 50,000 people live there, and it looks like a beautiful little city. Though you didn't come here for the geography lesson, did you? One thing though that's super interesting is that in the year 1950, half the city saw UFOs flying around the air above the city. That's nuts. That's crazy. That's cuckoo pants. Feckin' aliens at it again. So keeping with like the unsolved bizarre mystery, if you want to call it that, and I sure do, let's look at another one. Though it was only unsolved for like a month. It begins with Sasha Krause. Sasha was born in April 1992 in Temple, Texas, to parents Robert and Laura. She grew up with many brothers and sisters, Amanda, Megan, Emma, Robert, Evelyn, and Sarah, and when she was at the tender age of 11, her family joined the Mennonite Church. Now, I don't know jack shit about the Mennonites, though apparently they're not supposed to use the clackety-clackety computers, or at least many of them choose not to. So therefore, I can kind of just make up whatever shit I want and they won't correct me. Though, of course, I won't do that. Wink, wink. To quote a Facebook page, really, we are a body of born-again Christians who love God and seek to follow Jesus. Great, well that narrows your religion down. They wear a lot of, the old-fashioned get-up, modesty and all that, not really into modern stuff and entertainment, I understand. Genuinely good for them on that front. They make a lot of their own stuff, they are pacifists, and they also ride around on golden retrievers and use their milk for sustenance. Only one of those things I said is false. I'll leave it up to you to find out which. Okay, so I usually try and avoid the whole religious angle when I'm telling stories because it's a whole nest of vipers with robes on. So let's move on. Sasha, she was one of them. She had the little hat on. She was a school teacher. She spoke English, French, and Spanish, and she also wrote songs and hymns. And in 2018, she moved from the Mennonite community in Grandview, Texas, to the one in Farmington, New Mexico. She began working at Lamp and Light Publishers, who specialized in hardcore pornography. No, there's Bible stuff. Though the book does have some smut in it, so now let's talk January 18th, 2020. And that was 27-year-old Sasha's last day. That day was a fairly regular one for her. She had some shopping to do, a few bits here, a few bobs there, and then in the evening she had dinner with her fellow Mennonites at the compound. At roughly 7:30 p.m. she chowed down and then she popped into her car and she drove to the church. She had to pick up some books as she had a Sunday service, the following morning. Now this was like a 1-minute drive. Like they were all in the same, like you could practically see the church from where she had food. Like it's a little area. Okay, maybe there were some small hills in the way, but the reason she drove over there rather than just simply walking was because she had to pick up books. She hadn't even taken her purse, she hadn't even taken her jacket, but she didn't come back. No one knew what happened to her. No one saw, anything. When they went to the church, her car was there, but there was no sign of Sasha, nor any sign of anything. It was like one of those UFOs from 70 years ago had. On the 18th of January, the cold winter morning, still in the wee hours I'm talking, Sasha was reported missing to the police.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
It's on the Lamp and Lake compound, and what it is a missing person. Her name is Sasha Krause.
So when did we notice she didn't come back?
She left here to go down to the church to grab some Sunday school quarterlies. If we have church services up in Colorado.
So she's supposed to go up there tomorrow.
Right, she was supposed to go up there in the morning, but she never returned.
Are there some books missing?
So books are missing. So she probably made it that far.
Yeah.
So I just like to ask this question: has she ever had any background of drug use, alcohol use?
Disappearing at all?
Right. Not that I know of. Of all the girls that live here, she's probably the most stable. She's very, very sensible.
When the detectives arrived, they immediately examined the scene, finding jack shit. No items thrown around or left behind, no scuff marks in the dirt from a struggle. The church, nothing there either. The only thing that was kinda odd was in Sasha's car. The keys were between the passenger seat and the door, kind of an odd place to find them. So she was gone, and there was no indication she had been planning, to go anywhere. As I said, she had left all her stuff behind, and she said she would be right back. So it's her running off when her car was still there was not an option. Foul play was quickly kind of, came into focus. The police, they then tried to track her cell phone, and it indicated that she had left Farmington and gone to the Four Corners area where Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico meet. And then after that, her phone was switched off, and they had no idea where she'd gone. She'd gone west, and then she had gone dark. Searches were mounted in the surrounding countryside. Police, dogs, whirlybirds, the whole 9 yards.
In Farmington is missing, and the close-knit community is coming together asking for help finding her.
27-year-old Sasha Krause stopped by the church Saturday night to prepare for a class she was teaching. Her car was found nearby, but she hasn't been seen since.
There were some witnesses who reported a white SUV leaving the area around the time she vanished, but nothing concrete. And as these search parties continued, well, they would be to no avail. $50,000 was offered for information. Then, after all that, over a month later, a call came in. This call was, almost 300 miles from Farmington, New Mexico. It was coming from the Flagstaff, Arizona area. A woman's body had been discovered near the Sunset Crater Volcano National Park, which is essentially an area where thousands of years ago the Earth just shot out a bunch of lava. It's pretty cool.
Possible 901 there down on the Forest Road 244. I'll cut up to Sunset 103. I'm out with that reporting party. She is stating a possible 901 near her campsite.
On the 21st of February 2020, a call came in from that park. Some hikers had found something.
If you're willing, if you're just willing to write a statement for me of what you saw,
of course,
and how this happened.
What I'll probably do, I think, is I'm going to go down to Sedona after this and see my friend.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be alone.
They had found her. She was lying face down, her hands bound with tape.
Those are finger tracks right here.
Okay. And that's how you found her, or?
We didn't move her, nothing. She was real stiff, cold.
Single female, she's laying face down.
Due to how she was dressed, it didn't take long to cross-check with missing persons reports and identify whom they had found. But who had done this? Who had taken her all this distance and then murdered her? Whom?
Every time I watch videos like this, and especially from Mike, he's always respectable about the deceased. But it always makes me wonder, what capacity does somebody have to be in? What state of mind does somebody have to be in to want to do something so evil? It's just beyond me.
Who knows? She had no defensive wounds. It didn't seem like she resisted, whatever happened. She was a Mennonite, though. They're pretty peaceful folk, but you would think that, instinct would just kind of kick in and you might start kicking and screaming. It didn't seem like that at all. It seemed like, what we guess happened is that she went to the church, someone kidnapped her. She didn't try and fight back. Again, what you think your natural reaction would be to just even get the elbows out. She had nothing on her hands, no defensive marks at all. It's almost like she went along willingly with whatever happened. Sasha, she had blunt force trauma to the head, her skull had been fractured, and she had been shot in the back of the head with a rifle. She had been dead for some time. The scene? Well, then there wasn't much to go on other than Sasha's body. There's no clues, no evidence, nothing, in the surrounding area at all.
Her case has sparked fear within the Mennonite and Farmington community.
Although we do not personally have a lack of forgiveness toward that person, we know that somewhere a killer is running under the scorching wrath of God. And We just want them to do the right thing, and so that they can find his forgiveness.
In Farmington, Rachel Knapp, KRQE, News 13.
So what did the investigation do to get, the ball rolling? Well, they actually did something pretty smart. See, Sasha and her phone it was flagged at Farmington and then Four Corners, and then her phone went dark, and then her body was found near Flagstaff. So what the police then did was what's called a cell tower dump. So they got the cell phone towers at Farmington, at Four Corners, and at Sunset Volcano to shit out all of the cell phones that had pinged at each within a certain time frame. Whose phone pinged here, here, and here. They then cross-checked all the numbers that had pinged those three cell towers within that time frame, and it came up with one number. That was the gooches. The gooch is, the part of the skin between your and your, and that was him. Mark Gooch was his name, and being an Air Force mechanic was his game. He was 21 years old, stationed at the Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, Arizona, almost 3 hours to the south of Sunset Crater. He had no criminal history at all, speeding tickets being about the height of his interactions with law enforcement. He had been raised in Wisconsin in a dun-dun Mennonite family. Something he would say was, very hard on him growing up. They were difficult, they were restrictive, and so, when he got old enough, that's when he ran away and to join the Air Force. As a kid, though, he was kind of up to no good. He was a bit of a troublemaker, vandalism, burglary, thievery, kind of rebelling against, I guess, his religion, which was quite strict at the time. So he left, but he kept his hatred pretty strong for it, to a overreactive degree, I would say, maybe. Police went to the base and they questioned Mark.
Alright, so I always ask people this when I start an interview. What are you thinking right now? Do you have any idea as to why a detective with the sheriff's office would want to speak with you?
The only thing I can think of is maybe I'll drive too fast and I'm like,
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking of.
In that last 6 months, have you traveled out of state anywhere?
Yes, man, when I came down here, I drove from Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. So you drove from Wisconsin to
Correct.
anywhere else?
Pretty much all. Say Arizona.
I'll play you a bit now. The audio's not great. I did my best when I was editing this together. But just remember, the police will rarely ask a question they do not already know the answer to.
And I am working a homicide investigation. There was a girl named Sasha Krause that was killed. Did you hear about that news? So here's the deal. So your vehicle was picked up on that license plate reader in the general area on the same day actually that she went missing. So what I'm doing at this point is I gotta talk to everybody, as you can imagine. It's my job. Anybody who's in the area, anybody who could have seen something. I'm hoping really that maybe you have something that can help me. I don't know if you saw anything. You're Mennonite, or you're from Mennonite, and Sasha was too. Did you know her or anything about the case?
No, man.
So why were you in New Mexico that day?
I was planning on going, so I was checking out Mennonite churches, and I traveled up to Flagstaff. I was hoping that ski resort was still open.
Yeah.
They were closed due to coronavirus starting up. So I figured I'd go check out Mennonite church up in the area.
So you're checking out Mennonite churches. Is there any reason why you didn't tell me when I asked you if you've traveled? You didn't mention that to me.
I'm sorry. My memory just.
So about how long do you think you were in the area of the church?
I checked to see what time of service, Saturday services.
So back to why I'm here, though. Obviously, something terrible happened that day, and you happened to be there. Did you see anybody or see anything that could help me in my case?
Nothing really stood out to me. Very.
Did you see any women walking around that day? actually Sunday, right? Or the meal that you drove in on a Saturday, and you had heard about the Sasha Krause case. It's on the news. What did you think about that when you saw that?
It was shocking. I wish I had seen something.
Some of the questions I ask you today, I might know the answer to already. And so what I ask from you is just to be honest with me. Okay. Some of the timelines are not really adding up. As long as you're not lying to me, then we don't have issues. I'm just going to ask you straight. Were you involved with Sasha Krause's homicide? Did you abduct Sasha Krause? Did you know somebody? Did you know anything about her? Did you kill Sasha Krause?
You already asked him
That's
that.
a good question. These routine questions you normally ask everybody.
Yeah, I'll explain why I'm asking you these direct questions. There definitely are some inconsistencies that I've seen, from your story to what I already know.
Mark was charged with the kidnapping and murder of Sasha Krause.
Wow.
On the 18th of January, the day Sasha was taken, CCTV showed Mark leaving Luke Air Force Base that morning. Then, 7 hours later, his phone pinged just outside a lamp and light where Sasha was. Seems he'd been watching for quite some time, like a little stalker or something. Then, at almost 9 PM, his phone pinged again near Four Corners, as did Sasha's. Then at 1 AM, it pinged Sunset Crater. He then arrived back at the Air Force Base the very next morning. He went to Sunset Crater then 2 days later to check on his handiwork, to make sure she hadn't been found yet, to take a trophy. Who knows what he had done, but he had gone back there, and I can only think of one reason he would go back there. A search of his car revealed binoculars, gloves, and a receipt detailing his car for the 23rd of February. Yeah, he had his car detailed on the 23rd of February. The funny thing about that date is it is the day after the police publicly announced they had found Sasha Krause. So he was probably thinking, well, shit, better just, cover my bases here. She had been in my car and I'd kidnapped her. Her shit's gonna be everywhere. Well, not anymore. He also had a few purchases on his credit card, so they could link him to Farmington fairly well. What they couldn't link him to, though, was Sasha herself. It never seems like Mark Gooch and Sasha Krause ever interacted, ever at all. The only thing linking them was that they shared, or had shared, the same religion, the same upbringing, whatever. But it seemed that from, going through Mark's phone and texts he shared with his two brothers, they all of them shared a really deep, strong hatred for Mennonites, for what they had been brought up in. Something that burned brightly even years later after they had long left.
I often say this, and it does bother the living shit out of me. So, my former ex-wife, the one I'm always calling psycho or something, it's not from bitter hatred. In fact, I didn't even care that I got divorced. She kind of came into my life at a bad time. I was asked by my mother if I could move back in, and she wanted to take care of all my bills, which, wasn't necessary, but it was to help her watch over my grandmother, just because we didn't believe that throwing your relatives in a nursing home was, proper. And I know not all families can, devote time and effort into taking care of somebody, but she was, 90 years old, and started little by little with each year. Her dementia just got worse and worse and worse. And as it started happening with her being as old as she was, she would, get up, and if she were to fall, she broke a bone. She broke ribs. She broke her leg, which was probably the worst, because I told the fucking paramedics, and excuse my language when I say this, but I had told them, because she had a prescription for Vicodin for, her ailments. And this is before they transferred it over to a Schedule II substance, so they could, use refills and all that. and her doctors gave it to her because, of these injuries that she was essentially putting herself through, but not knowing, thinking that she was capable of doing more. And so I was there to watch her. And one day, I have the door open, and, she always knew, at least we try to make it clear that if she needed help or anything, just call me. And, had the door open, didn't hear anything, and I just hear a thud. And then I hear her yelling, in pain. And so she broke her leg. I go and get, some Vicodin, and I put it in the water and really mix it up and, give it to her. And where this story leads is while we're at the hospital and while we're speaking with the doctor, I am very cognizant listening to the heartbeat monitor, and it starts slowing and slowing and slowing. They had to give her Narcan. So with my ex-psycho, their religion doesn't allow that. And just like Scientology, they said John Travolta's wife could have had a 50-50 chance of living if she were allowed the treatment that is given to patients who had her type of cancer. But Scientology doesn't allow or agree with the use of using somebody else's blood or, anything of that nature. And a lot of these, religions, like this guy who, clearly was pissed off growing up in it, I can understand why. Again, this going back to my ex, and the reason why I mentioned my grandma was because we were non-denominational. And so anything to help her feel better or get her around was good. And my ex was never, ever belittling of that. Her mom, however, and their strange-ass religion, because it sounds a lot like these people. Hair up in a bun, long skirts down to their ankles. They would say, this is what really got me scared, and I should have inquired just for the safety of my daughter now, but not knowing I was going to have a child with the psycho. She says she was raped, and I never further discuss it, because who wants to hear about their spouse being raped when they were younger? But then I'm kind of putting two and two together, because she said these people would come over and they would be called the leaders, and the permissioner would, the husband and wife would put them up for 2 weeks, cook for them, clean for them, wash their clothes, and they would have nightly services, which are just weird. They're more or less like a confession, and just to kind of appease and get the approval of my ex-mother-in-law, because she didn't like Hispanics. She didn't like any other race, actually. She would say, oh, my daddy said it wasn't a good idea to ever mix races. And her uncle asked her, so how do you feel about your daughter marrying a wetback? Which I couldn't help but laugh, because I was outside smoking a cigarette downwind. And just to show, respect, I didn't want the rest of the family to see. They knew I smoked cigarettes, but, I was just being respectful. So that made me laugh my ass off. And obviously my ex wasn't like that, but her mom was. And when I was telling her this story, they're like, oh my God, you actually gave her that kind of harsh medicine. Don't you care about her, well-being? And I'm like, well, for one, she's not an addict. She doesn't need one every single day. And for two, when you break your leg and you're waiting for paramedics to arrive, yeah, it's pretty concerning that she's there in pain. And me just laying there on the floor with her, trying to help her, calm her down by, rubbing her back, just, making sure that, she's keeping eye contact with me, because any little injury like that could lead to death. But these weird religions, like I was mentioning with these leaders, when they would leave the permissioner's house, they would ask, or they wouldn't ask, they would be given money. I don't know how much up to, but my ex said that, and my ex was an accountant, not for them, but for the BLM. And I used to work for the Department of Veterans Affairs. She used to work for the Department of the Interior. Them as a national organization are worth over $20 million tax exempt, obviously. And instead of buying a place of worship, they just go and stay at parishioners' houses. And I wanted to know so bad, did one of these leaders rape my ex, or was it something else? You know, again, that was my stupidity for not asking, because my daughter is going through this right now, being able to spend more time with my ex than me. And that worries me to no end. So this man's hatred towards these Mennonites, I can see how it was frustrating, but him taking it out on her, maybe there's a twist at the end that he's going to come up with, but why take it out on just a random person? Maybe they were dating, which I don't know if that was allowed, if it was just straight to marriage or what, their courtship, but it's kind of odd that he would just target one Mennonite and not just maybe his parents, you know, like, F you for making me go through this shit. So that's just kind of like part of what some of these religions do to really guilt trip the shit out of you.
Would routinely text each other talking shit about them. Here's some texts. For example, Mark's brother Jacob Gooch would go on to become a Virginia state trooper. In one text exchange, he told how he pulled over a Mennonite to give them a traffic ticket. Jacob then said he coughed on the driver of this car, hoping he would give them COVID. Wow, look at you. You're a cunt. Mark had been watching Mennonites for some time, surveilling them, he would say in text messages. Then, when he saw Sasha going somewhere by herself, he followed, and he took her. And he took all his anger out on her. He drove her to Arizona, he beat her, and then he shot her in the back of the head. Then he deleted his Google history. I'm guessing he thought if he deleted his Google, location services would be erased, which I guess it would be. But it wouldn't erase his phone cell tower data, which is completely separate to Google. But he's a dumb shit, so. Then, after word spread that Mark had been arrested and charged with murder, the police got a phone call from one of Mark's friends saying, hey, listen, a while ago Mark gave me a rifle. Don't really want it. Maybe police, you should take it. Don't know what this rifle has been used for. Police would say, all right. They would go out, they would check that weapon and find it matched the bullet found inside Sasha's body. So now they had the murder weapon. But then something else happened, which is Mark in jail. He called, all jailhouse calls are recorded. So Mark, he called his brother and was like, hey, listen, bro, I left a weapon with a friend of mine. Would you mind going there, grabbing it, and maybe destroying it? Because Mark didn't know that the police had already located it, because that friend had called them. So Mark's brother went to this friend's house. He was like, here, listen, give me the goods. And the police then swiftly arrested him for attempting to destroy and tamper with evidence. He swiftly agreed to testify against his brother in exchange for the charge going bye-bye. The trial began in September 2021, Mark pleading not guilty. The prosecution, they had kind of everything I just went through.
The defendant got into his car, a VW Jetta, and he drove north up the I-17 past Flagstaff and then turned towards the east, toward New Mexico. Eventually he arrived in the town of Farmington, New Mexico. Now this was a Saturday, it was the defendant's day off, and yet he chose that day to drive 7 hours to an obscure community on the eastern edge of Farmington, New Mexico, the place where Sasha lived, the Lampin-like community. Now, there's no indication the defendant knew anybody at that community. Nobody at that community knew the defendant, and yet he spent roughly 4 hours in that area. It's unclear exactly what he was doing that entire time. He never introduced himself to anyone in that community. Nobody even knew he was there. And what happened when Sasha got to the church is not entirely clear. But what will be clear is that the defendant was there, that he abducted Sasha, put her in his car, and then drove hours away to the area of the Sunset Crater National Monument.
The defense, though, they said it was all bullshit. The forensic evidence didn't match up. The bullet, it could be debated whether or not it was from the discovered murder weapon. The motive was thin at best. Which I do agree with, by the way, but let's come back to that.
In the reasonable doubt instruction, there's language that talks about things that we know with absolute certainty. And what we can say to you with absolute certainty is that the death of Sasha Krause It's tragic. That's absolutely certain. And that's never forgotten here. The only thing worse than not finding and bringing to justice Sasha Krause's killer would be to accuse and convict the wrong person. That'd be called a miscarriage of justice. The bottom line is that the state has really no motive whatsoever to try to suggest that a peaceful, nonviolent person who didn't know this individual would have had any reason whatsoever to abduct, let alone harm. And they tell you about evidence that they have that is twofold. One is a text message between Mark and his brother, where he talks about looking at some people at a church. And the context is what the state is trying to suggest supports their position, but we'll carefully analyze that, and I think you can come to a different conclusion.
At the end, Mark was found guilty of all charges.
Mr. Gooch, is there anything you want to say on your own behalf today before sentence is pronounced?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Firstly, I'd like to express my sincere condolences to the deceased family. And I'd also like to express my thankfulness for the love and support of my own family in this difficult situation. Thank you.
This case, I've thought long and hard about it, and I think this case is truly the most senseless case I have ever presided over. I have thought, since the defendant was found guilty by the jury, why he would have committed this crime, this horrific abduction and murder of an innocent person, that he didn't, even if he knew the person, it wouldn't be justified. But the fact that he didn't even know her is also so very senseless and really mind-boggling. It's just to wrap your head around what occurred in this case. It just makes no sense why one human being would do this to another human being.
Mark Gooch was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He also got 5 years for kidnapping. Well, that sounds as delightful as a hot sauce enema. But this case, to bring it back around, does not make sense to me at all. The Gooch, he was driving hours and hours and hours to communities all around the area, to these Mennonite communities. I mean, like Farmington, from where he was based at Luke Air Force Base, was a 7-hour drive. Like, fucking hell, he must be pretty determined, to go there to surveil and hope you're gonna get lucky and find someone. But that's even less mattering to me than why. I feel like we're not getting the full story here from Mark, and his childhood growing up in that community. Like, maybe something worse must have happened to make him hold on to this for so many years, to the point where he would brutally kidnap and murder an innocent woman simply because she was a member of that community, and he was trying to, he was surveilling them. He was going to do it to somebody. Unfortunately, it was Sasha. Like, your childhood just being difficult and restrictive, that's, most of the world will be driven to kill then if that's, what caused him to do it.
There's something there. And you can't, is it just something you don't want to talk about? Something that happened that made you, I guess, leave the church?
There must have been some serious trauma that's never been uncovered, that's never been delved into, about what happened to him that would drive him to this. I mean, let me know your thoughts, as always. But at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit, because of what he did to, this lovely innocent woman, because he is a fucking gooch.
Yes, he is. Thank you, Mike. Like always, brother.
Hey guys, Future Mike here, just popping in to say hello. Hello. And to let you know of a few small changes that are coming for that chapter, what I like to call the next chapter of that chapter. Namely, from next week, that chapter will be a 1 video a week sort of dealio. Now, I hear you barking, big dog, I know. but it's for good reason. Really, really good reason, which I'll get into now. It really means I'll be able to spend a lot more time on videos, so in the future expect longer, bigger, better content to come from me to you. Don't worry guys, I'm not going anywhere. I just want to spend a little bit more time per video. I don't know if many of you guys know that chapter is pretty much just me. I sometimes get help on research, but I don't have any help doing anything else. So that chapter is really just a one-horse show. So I would just rather spend more time per video and making them, them longer, putting more research into them. So, you can expect longer videos to come. It may not be on a Tuesday at 8, or Tuesday at 3 EST, or Friday at 3 EST, or 8 my time. But it will be every week, so just to let you know. But that's not all. I have also been working on a secret project, what I'm calling Project X. And it's coming soon. I don't really want to tell you when, because maybe that'll change, so I'm not going to give you false info, but it's something I've been working on for a couple of months. Expect it in the next couple of months, and it's something I'm super, super excited about. So, just because that chapter is going to one video a week, that doesn't mean there will only be one that chapter thing a week. So look forward to that. I'll tell you more. I'll tell you more when I know more. But for now, thank you as always for the amazing support you guys have given me for 5 years now, if you can believe that. I started that chapter in 2017, and now it's 2022. I'm living in the future, guys. We're all living in the future. Back to old Mike. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this solo video with Misha. It means a lot, so I really do appreciate it. Thank you for giving me your time. Sinead, I'll see you as always real soon in the next old video, which will be in a couple of days. You know yourself. So here, go on. Take care of yourselves as always. Because I love you. Mike out.
Damn, if I had gotten really good and upgraded this computer, which, like I said, I too, myself, am revamping this entire page. Mind you, I don't have nowhere near the numbers he does. But I'm trying to get there, and it takes some time. It doesn't happen overnight. I appreciate each and every single person who subscribes to me. I always will do my best to go out of my way to like or love a comment, interacting. It's important to me because somebody took a part of their time to maybe enjoy a video that I put out, or haven't heard of something that might interest them, or with me re-uploading a lot of the first things that I did on this channel because somebody had said, like, I've never heard of him, I love his songs. And maybe they may not have gone out on their own and listened to him. So re-uploading some of my favorite songs and his talent. I'm talking about Alejandro Aranda, or AKA Scary Pool Party. Amazing artist. And, with Mike, the dude does a great job if he were to release 2 videos a week, but I get where he's coming from. It's probably stressful, and if I was a good enough editor, I would definitely say, hey, I could offer you my services if you need that help. But my computer is fast enough to upload certain things, but I know for a fact, even with me, replacing the RAM on 4 cards instead of 2, getting an SSD hard drive, really going through the works. If I needed to get a video graphics card, I would have to get a whole new power source. So in March, I'm upgrading everything, revamping the channel, gonna do more of my own stuff along the lines of what I'm already doing now. But man, please go show Mike some love and subscribe to his channel if you haven't been there before. And for those of you who may not YouTube, but those of you who do YouTube know, when you have YT Studios, you see the analytics of every single, possible category in your YouTubing, quote unquote. It's perplexing because the people who subscribe to you are least likely to watch new uploaded videos. It's usually new subscribers. I rarely say this, new subscribers. I want to say it more often, and I wish Mike did, because I know if he were to say, he'd probably catch the attention of 100 more, 1,000 people and get to 2 million. But, to new subscribers, check out some of my content and maybe I could get you to enjoy and like my channel and subscribe. Right now, I react. There's plenty of channels like that everywhere, giving our opinion. But I also put some of my own stuff out, where I talk about my career so far. I've started acting. I was in the music industry by the name, as you could obviously tell, for a number of years. So being in the entertainment industry, from being behind the camera now to being in front and acting, has been, a great stress reliever, shall I say, especially after the whole lockdown incidents. So if I could earn that subscribe and that like from you, that really goes a long way. And it's not even, I'm nowhere close to monetizing. If that ever happened one day, that would be great. But, I'm still going to go out and still going to act, still pick up gigs wherever I can. And usually those gigs come by people calling you. Not really, they're not going to audition you by you calling them. Maybe they're just looking for something that you happen to fit the profile perfectly, which, in my case has happened. So yeah, I would definitely appreciate that. Before the video started, I was talking about my cabin in Grand Lake, which it was just absolutely beautiful there. And they never had a fire. So if any of you guys have ever been to Grand Lake, you go up Berthoud Pass, so you're higher in elevation. The lake is very large, and it kind of goes, there's another lake, and I forget the name of the other lake, but when you enter the town of Grand Lake, you had the nice little, shopping, for little knickknacks here and there. And there used to just be pine trees as far as the eye can see all over. Beautiful. And I acquired the cabin when my stepfather died, passed away. It was always his dream to follow it, and I guarantee if he were alive when it burnt down, he probably would have had a heart attack, because this was his, this was his thing. This was his baby, kind of. He didn't have any children, with the exception of an adopted son, and I don't want to do defamation of character, but he was a piece of work. And he was very good with money, so he was fairly well to do. The cabin was about 11 to 12,000 square feet, 10-car garage. He owned about 8 classic cars and some heavy machinery, which one of the jobs I do besides acting, because I'm not self-sufficient on acting alone yet, is, rent out machinery. And just to kind of show you the damage that fire can cause, is just, when you see it firsthand in these pictures, it breaks my heart. Unfortunately, 2 people did perish, and about over 100 moose, which Grand Lake is very well known for. Moose, bucks, deers were found almost in a pile as they kind of got disoriented and got caught by all sides of flames. And they found a huge pile of, these poor animals. And Grand Lake never experienced a fire like this. In fact, there's really one way in, one way out. The only other way people can get out is by going through another pass, which leads you through Rocky Mountain National Park, which is really climbing, and that's where the fire kind of, it crescendoed from Estes Park. And not every house was burned down. It amazes me, because my stepfather's best friend, his house was closer to the fire than ours, but ours burned down and his didn't. Now people might say, but you're made whole by the insurance. Actually, no. I'll describe that real quick. So, me, my mom, my brother are the sole owners. And we'll often allow, my nieces who are of age, with the exception of one of them, to, have their friends go up there and, party, relax, do their thing. And my niece is very, very smart, driven, just an all-around great person. She noticed that when she went to go unlock the door that the stair steps were like nearly 2.5 to 3 feet away from the house. So she calls her dad, which is my brother, and my brother has been an electrician for like 30 years. He's a master electrician, and so he knows, construction stuff. Well, I've always done, the entertainment industry, or more or less what he wants to call office work. Okay, you can say that now. I don't do that now, but back then, yes, kind of. And what had happened was the foundation shifted from ground movement, and our insurance did not cover ground movement. They came in, they braced the foundation, and after 25 years, they dropped the insurance on us. I mean, what pieces of shit. Who would have known this fire would have happened? Nobody could explain it. It wasn't intentionally set. It didn't even start in Grand Lake. But fact of the matter is, our insurance dropped us, and no other insurance company would pick us up. And so when the fire happened, we were uninsured on it because some assholes said, "Oh yeah, we don't cover earth movement." Well, why the fuck are you not more specific in your contracts? Because you sure as shit didn't say that when you're having us pay you a shitload of money every month for insurance. So let me show you guys the damage to this beautiful place. Okay, so right here, the cabin wasn't fully finished at this time, but as you can see, here's the land we own and the beautiful cabin. Windows were being installed at that time, but this whole bottom portion is a garage underneath the house where we also have a couple skidsters. We lost one of them in the fire. And like I said, it was about 12,000 square feet. Parts of it were unfinished, so closer to like 11.5 or 11. But yeah, just absolutely beautiful with a gorgeous view. And then here is a picture that a firefighter's drone caught of the blaze, and it honestly looks like a picture of hell. So here are a couple propane tanks. You see all these trees just bending over, and there's the cabin right there, just waiting to get eaten up. And that just dropped my heart. I was like, oh my God, no way. I mean, if you would have seen this before, there were tons of these smaller pine trees just encircling the whole thing. In fact, I have a funny story. It was on this side of the house one year before I got married to we were walking, and my brother's dog, I loved him so much. Not like my dog, but I loved him just as much, almost. He's walking with us, and then he turns around and he starts barking ferociously. I would say it would very well what likely could have been this tree, but probably the tree burned down. But I remember vividly it was on this side of the house, and it was a fucking bull moose. And that sucker, and he stomps his foot in the ground. And Onyx, which is my brother's dog's name, he's just barking at it. And the moose, I'm like, you know what? These pine trees, given how thin they are, they're not going to protect us if he comes charging. So I held her, like wrapped my arms and body around her, and got behind as many pine trees as I could because I thought this fucker was going to rush. And thankfully, my brother's dog got it away. That's how many moose were always around. And that was a lifesaver. But it's the aftermath that just it drives you crazy. It's nuts to see what fire can really do to a place. And it just melted everything. This was the roof. It just melted it. And here was, the garage. I mean, look at the metal. Just twisted. And, I mean, it's to be expected, I guess, because, that's how they build metal. But I mean, all these beautiful trees. My stepfather, I remember when I was about 8 years old, like we were shooting arrows and throwing axes at the trees, and he was a lot like me in the sense that he wouldn't hunt, and he understood the need for hunting and all that, but he wouldn't hurt an animal. He wouldn't allow anyone on the property to hunt. He didn't even want us, shooting arrows at the trees, which I thought would be okay. I don't agree with, like, I understand the reason for hunting, but I would never go. But yeah, to think that, I know the skidster's like over here more, and I don't have a picture of that, but one of the skidsters was just melted down like the roof. And they build these, metal roofs for the snow because the snow weighs so much. House won't collapse. It could just, thaw out that way. But yeah, it was just absolutely terrible. Everything is just, I mean, used to be so dry up there, and you could tell by the first photo that I showed. I mean, look at how freaking dry everything is. And so you could have, lit off a firework somewhere here and had a blaze quickly. The trees around here, a little bit more healthier, a little bit more. I mean, because this was like a, part of the land, part of our land, but it wasn't for some reason. I mean, the trees here look like, they're lush, but certainly past these trees, it just gets, the grass and everything just, yeah, it was bound to happen. So awful experiences in life. But you know what? All you can do is say, yeah, something terrible happened. You know what? I'm going to get over it. I'm going to move on. And I'm going to do what I do and stay positive. Something good is going to happen, and something good will, definitely make the days that I'm looking forward to that much more better. So anyways, guys, I hope you liked this video this evening. Might upload a couple more. We'll see. But in the meantime, look forward to any comments, likes, dislikes. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what you'd like to see or hear more often of. And I'm there with you. Until then, peace out, guys. And I just realized I was covering those pictures. So let me just show you again. I apologize. Just remember the stories that I tell, because I won't go over all the stories again. So, yep, that was the house right there. Or the cabin. And the size and everything I mentioned, how dry it was. Drone picture by the firefighters in Grand Lake. And this. Wow, we talked about how it just melted down to nothing. So it's just crazy. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you back real soon. Peace.